What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso. Sunday, AM coffee, Justin Fields edition. A quick hit on Fields because we got some longer form stuff cooking on him. I just wanted to give some end of week one step back, very top line thoughts on the Jets' presumed new starting quarterback. It's a big thing. It's obviously the biggest thing that's happened so far this offseason. As we get into it, the reason we've been able to do 17,000 pods so far this week, and we'll do another 17,000 or so this week, is partially due to how effective our good friends at Magic Mind have been in continuing to support us with their mental performance shots. And for me, I've been a big fan of it. I've been using it since the start of last season. We always make sure to link out the discount code here. I highly recommend going with the subscription model, free shipping, ease of delivery, easy cancellation process. But the free shipping for me, really nice bonus to have. And from a taste perspective, sometimes these things are a little nasty to have first thing in the morning. I actually find the taste really good with this. I think it goes really well with coffee. You don't have to use it as a coffee replacement. It's got some nice turmeric in there, a little anti-inflammatory to start the day, and it's just a nice mental boost. And for our listeners, we're going to continue to remind you to check out in the description of the episode to get 48% off with the code JETS20, or to click the link and take advantage of a subscription. Really strong product. We remain a big fan here. We've been a big fan for a while. So, new starting quarterback for the Jets, Justin Fields. This has been headed in this direction for a while. We started to talk about it more as the league year got closer, and it feels to kind of seem like a two-team situation. He ends up going with the Jets. It's not surprising he left Pittsburgh after getting benched by them last year. He's, of course, of that Zach Wilson draft class, was the guy that I think a lot of Jet fans thought initially could have been the pick since they weren't getting Lawrence before the Wilson hype took over. And he's been disappointing to date. And I think we're all trying to open our minds to, can he go and have a resurgence in the right situation? We've seen it from Baker Mayfield. We've seen it from Sam Darnold. We've seen it from Geno Smith. Oh, that's a bit of a different situation. Fields is a very unique quarterback. I mean, his ability to run the football in recent years is, on a different level. This is a guy who ran for over 1,100 yards in a season in 2022 with 8 rushing touchdowns. That is just a different beast when it comes to it. We zero in on last year, 62 carries, 289 yards, a little less than 5 yards per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns. Throwing the football, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1,100 yards passing, 6.9 yards per attempt. There's certainly been, through his 4 years, a lot of limitations with what he can do in the passing game. I also think what's been a problem for him is protecting the football, taking unnecessary sacks. That is sort of the negative side of a guy that can almost get out of just about any sack, but sometimes will try to do too much. How the Jets use him is just going to be fascinating to watch. I think we should all go into this with clear eyes, in that he is not going to turn into one of the best passing quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think he needs to be an effective starter. I do think in a very specific kind of offense, especially when you have running backs like Breece Hall and Braylon Allen and a receiver like Garrett Wilson, and if they could figure out tight end, there are certain things you can do that are going to be really hard for certain defenses to defend. The Jets should be able to run the ball at a level that few teams can, especially they figure out right tackle, the other 4 spots you're feeling good about. It's just very difficult to deal with a quarterback who can effectively run the ball the way Fields does. Now, that doesn't work in every situation. There's a reason NFL teams don't run triple option and wing T and all RPO. You have to be able to keep teams honest by throwing the football. You have to be able to throw the win. We don't have to act like that's not the case. Now, Fields has a strong arm. There's moments where he can rip the ball down the field and you're like, wow, that's why he was a first round pick. And some people thought he could be the first pick in the draft. The consistency just hasn't been there. And we know he's going to have the comfort with Garrett Wilson. We know the Jets should have the ability to be effective on play action with how they run the ball, but we got to see it to believe it. And, Fields, I think they'll play up that it's a competition, but Fields will be the starter. And I think they'll be patient enough with him. They know what Tyrod is, and Tyrod's a very good backup and spot starter. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up starting a few games because how Fields plays, he may get banged up at some point, or there might just be a game or two where he just doesn't have it and it's the wrong kind of defense and Tyrod's more effective. So I think we'll see both quarterbacks, but Fields is going to play the majority of the time. And there's certain exciting things he can do, and it's a worthwhile dart throw. I don't expect Justin Fields to be the Jets' long-term starting quarterback. I hope I'm wrong. It'd be great if all of a sudden this guy gets revitalized and he could become like Jalen Hurts light, where you could run this dynamic power run offense, and he's a huge part of that, and he does enough as a passer to allow you to compete. Jalen Hurts is coming off winning Super Bowl MVP. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. I don't think Fields is going to be in that stratosphere anytime soon, but can become a light version of that allows you to be a 9-8 team while you figure out everything else and fix up all the other parts of the roster. It's not inconceivable. What I like about Fields is the general trajectory of the completion percentage has gone up every year. The yards per attempt has been very consistent. It's been 6.9 every single year. The 1 year in 2022, it was 7.1, but it's basically been really consistent. Doesn't throw he throws more interceptions than you like, but it's not quite as ugly as you may expect. Certainly if you've been watching Zach Wilson for a large chunk of the past few years. It's the fumbles and it's the taking the sacks and it's the limitations that flash at times in the passing game. Is he just reading half the field? Can he get to the third, fourth guy in the formation? It's going to really be on Engstrand to be creative and scheme different things. And that's why, if Graham's not on the board, I just love the thought of having a guy like Warren as an outlet, as someone who could get down the seam, and having him to work off of Garrett Wilson and route combinations with Breece Hall coming out of the backfield. It's a good amount to work with, regardless of how the rest of the depth chart gets rounded out. So I think the Jets are going to try to play, this is not surprising, we've been saying this for a while, a very specific style of football. And there's going to be weeks that it works really well. If they have that offensive line going and Fields gets some momentum, he's going to have games where he runs for 87 yards on 11 carries and 2 touchdowns, and Breece chips in 113 yards, and they're going to be bullying around the right type of team, and it's going to look awesome. There's also going to be weeks where, Fields is probably 11 for 20 for 116 yards, and you're like, holy shit, we're so one-dimensional. I'm not optimistic enough to be like, this is going to be a total home run. They're going 10-7. We need to see it. And maybe he's a different guy in this offense. I think they can be competitive. I think it's very hard to defend a guy who can do what he can do as a runner at times, not all the time, but at times. So if nothing else, it'll be interesting. And I'm curious to see how they handle the framing of the quote unquote competition in the summer. And if there is a moderately quick hook, if they are just really running into a stone wall throwing the football. Of course, he's going to be a guy we've put a lot of time into from a pod and from a film breakdown perspective in the coming months. But now that some of the dust has settled in the first few days of free agency, I thought it was good to just, take a beat and talk about the decision. And, I think when you watched how some of the other dominoes fall, this still makes sense. I don't really know where else the Jets were going in this situation. I didn't ever really think they were going to be that aggressive to go get Cam Ward. I didn't think it was a 0% chance. Do they still take a mid-round dart throw? Yeah, I think so. I think it comes around 3 or round 4, and we'll spend more time, as the draft gets closer. Is that a Milroe? Is that a Will Howard? Is that a McCord? I don't think it's going to be dart. I think he's going to probably go somewhere between where they pick after in the first round and before they get up again. But I would not write them off taking a quarterback, and I think that hunt is going to continue. Although I'm sure internally the Jets are optimistic they could find a way to make this work for them, and maybe have found the right lottery ticket in a guy with Fields, because you've seen these other guys reboot their careers in recent seasons. So that wraps Sunday AM Coffee. I expect another week of high volume of podcast. I believe as of recording this, we have 1 live show ticket left. So be number 225, April 11th. It's getting here, man. It's going to be awesome to see everyone in person. I'm very, very excited. We also still have our merch like rocking at badlandstoj.com. Got those nice white rope hats. Go grab one. They're awesome. And, just keep refreshing. We got a lot of stuff like filtering through here. I think if you've seen, we've gotten to the good insomnia pod rotation. We've gotten into draft season. We got flight plan going. Of course, we have normal war room and the regular flagship pod. So it's busy times at Badlands. And, this week, the first week of the league year is always interesting because there's never moderated reactions to everything that happens. It's either overreacting in excitement to too many moves or overreacting with a lack of excitement to not enough moves. And the main thing to remember is, it's mid-March. The season doesn't start till mid-September. And just because transactions don't happen in the first week does not mean there won't be more. There will be transactions the second, third, and fourth week. There'll be transactions wrapped around and during the NFL draft. There'll be transactions around OTAs, and there'll be transactions in training camp. So this roster is a major work in progress. I don't think we have to act like it isn't. It is. They're coming off a long tenure from a previous GM. Like the guy was here for effectively 100 games. Everything is not going to be unwound in one off season. And I'm not saying that to give Muji and Glenn any type of pass. Like I am a realist, but it's not good enough to come in and just get your ass kicked every single week and just blame it on Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh. Now, they have a certain kind of competitive, like 7-10, 8-9. Like it's a different conversation, but you can't just come out and go 4-13 and be like, well, it was Joe Douglas's fault. Like that's not good enough. And this is a roster that still has Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, Quincy Williams, Jamie and Sherwood, 4 solid offensive linemen to begin with. So it's not this like barren wasteland. So that's my week 1 riff, a little more than Fields, and then continue to check back every Sunday for AM Coffee. That will continue to roll throughout the entire offseason. Make sure you jump into the Discord as well if there's any further questions you have. We've been hitting a lot more mailback episodes, and I expect most of that stuff to turn to the NFL draft because that is coming up very fast. And again, we will have our draft guide live, usually about a week or so before the NFL draft. But certainly now the Jets with even that much of a better pick in the 3rd round, it's going to be that much more to discuss with the overall pick. So get ready to watch a Justin Fields tape. Get ready to watch a Justin Fields highlights. Get ready to talk yourself into him having another 1,200-yard rushing season, which would be unprecedented in Jets history. They don't have a long, illustrious history of mobile quarterbacks outside of like one Mike Vick game and a couple games from Quincy Carter. So this will be different. Zach had, to be fair to Zach, he had a couple nice moments running the football, although I think the Jaguars were tanking that game. But we'll see a different element that we haven't seen behind center for the Jets really ever. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.